On a beautiful day, our beautiful Evergreen State rain has returned. That's some good news in the state of Washington. But we have some other good news to talk about today. We've asked you to join us to talk about the progress we're making in reducing the homelessness encampments on our right-of-ways and across the state of Washington. We're talking about why we're making solid progress and about the things that we will continue to do to continue to make progress against homelessness. We know this is a crisis in the state of Washington. We know we have a long ways to go. But I am pleased to say we are making solid progress on this effort. In the last several months, we've seen quite a number of these encampments removed from our right-of-ways. And as you know, this is a safety issue, both for the traveling public and for the folks who've been living in squalor along our freeways. And because of the diligent work of people at our Department of Transportation, our State Patrol, our law enforcement, and multiple other local officials, we are being able to remove these encampments and, importantly, find other housing that is much safer for people so they are not living in squalor along our freeways. You have pictures behind us. I believe this is the before picture of the Dearborn site. And because of our right-of-way homelessness initiative, we now have this as the current situation. And those people who were there are now in much more secure housing, many of them in the building that we're standing in here. That has been replicated throughout freeways and highways across the state of Washington. So we are making significant progress. Now, I want to talk about the reason we are able to make this progress. One, the public is with us on this. They think it's untenable to allow people to live in squalor along our highways. They understand it's a hygiene and a safety risk. And they want those folks to be able to get in much more habitable situations. They care about these people who frequently have mental health challenges or chemical addiction problems or just have had a unlucky break in life. They want to help these folks, and that's what we are doing successfully. Because what we have done, because of the diligence of this effort, we are able to provide people alternate, better housing up and down the spectrum. Tiny houses, converted hotels, facilities such as this that local communities are helping with us, and building more permanent housing. Because we have come to understand we are not going to wait. We have to jump on this problem today. We cannot simply look for solutions that take decades. We need solutions that we get done in weeks. And what we're finding is, because of our strategy that has been so aggressive on this, we have been able to get people in housing in weeks rather than decades. In part, because we've embraced transitional housing to get people under a roof that is secure with a locked door and storage capacity and hygiene facilities. That has allowed people to become much more stable in their lives so they can move on. Actually, I'll share just a little story with you about why this strategy is being successful. I was at a tiny home village in Vancouver the day before yesterday, and I met a fellow named John. He's a young man who told me that he'd had a heroin addiction problem for some period of time. Then he got out of a tent in a previous homeless encampment that had been in that site and went into a tiny home village where he had a roof over his head. It was heated and cooled. He had hygiene facilities. He had a locked door. He had stability. And he said, because I became stable in my housing, I've now been able to address my addictive behavior. And he's been sober for several months. And he says, you know what this tiny house village did for me? It saved my life. So we are saving lives as well as removing squalor along our highways. And this is good work. This strategy is working. We are saving lives at the same time we're protecting the motoring public and removing squalor from our highways. So we're having success in this regard. But we've got to keep it up. We've got more work to do. We've got to continue on this strategy of rapid housing. Now, this is something I've been very diligent on and frankly insistent on, is that when we make our investment in housing, we insist on a significant part of our position being on rapid housing. That's why I'm glad the legislators joined us by putting about $300 million of the $800 we invested into these rapid housing projects. And that rapid housing is the kind of thing that are moving people very, very quickly to get this job done. We need to continue our commitment to that. We've built tiny home villages. We've converted hotels. We have facilities like this across the state of Washington, but it is not enough. We need to continue to expand our operations in that regard. So I think I can tell you with some confidence that we will be back with the legislature, again, increasing our commitment not only to long-term housing solutions, which we're building across the state of Washington, east and west side, rural and urban, but also into the rapid housing that we know that has been so effective. So we know that that is part of our solution. We know we're making progress on this. But I want to talk about, to some degree, a longer-term need that we need that sometimes is forgotten. We know we need additional mental health and wraparound services for these folks. We know we need additional chemical treatment facilities. We know we need more officers. We need more cops on the beat and less guns, and we're doing those things by getting more officers well trained. We're doing all of these things. But fundamentally, we need more housing in the state of Washington. Look, we are tens of thousands. We're 76,000 units of housing short because we've had hundreds of thousands of people moving to the state of Washington because we have such a great economy, because we're the nicest place to live in the United States, but we're 76,000 units short of building housing. We have to build more housing up and down the scale of housing if we're going to solve this problem. That includes middle housing, market-rate housing, because if we don't do this, people who move into our state price people out on the rental scale and end up with people in the lower income levels becoming homeless. So we have to address the multiple things we need to do to build more housing, and I look forward to working with the legislators to do that. One of the things we need to do is find some additional places to build more housing. We have some of our zoning rules now that are an unnecessary restriction on housing, and I look forward to working with legislators. We were going to make some proposals to increase housing opportunities along transit corridors, which is so effective for people to get to work, and consider percentages that we'll expect cities to help with housing facilities in their cities. I look forward to working with legislators to try to get that job done. We want to look at creative ideas like potentially expanding the REIT exemption for people who sell their homes to first-time buyers. And we're going to look for ways to expedite permitting so we can build housing more quickly. One of which is important, which is to give our permitting authorities more resources to handle permits when we want to build housing and housing developments. We think this can be very effective because housing costs are associated with how long it takes to get these permits on occasion. So, bottom line, we're making progress on removing encampments on our right-of-ways. 2, the strategy we pursued with rapid housing and giving people wraparound services is having real success. And 3, we got to keep up this work and increase our commitment to these efforts. So with that, we have some really great speakers who've been leaders on this joint effort. By the way, I do want to say this, maybe it's obviously, the state is not the only player in this game. To be successful, we have to work with all levels of government and nonprofits. And I'm fortunately seeing that good cooperation to make this team run. With that, I want to introduce Nicole Macri, who's been working diligently on housing, both in her capacity as a legislative leader and otherwise. Nicole, come on up.
Thanks so much, Governor, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm Nicole Macri, and I represent the 43rd Legislative District, which includes several parts of Seattle. And this past legislative session worked very closely with the governor and his team on this proposal for investing more state resource and collaboration with our local governments in state right-of-ways to ensure that we could move people who were living unsheltered in communities all around the state into more meaningfully better circumstances and ultimately into sustainable, secure housing. And it is really heartening to see this early success. And the governor covered many of the elements that make this worthwhile. But the couple of things I want to focus on to me that this has been really worthwhile and why it has worked is, number one, because of the courage to do the right thing, the courage to stop literally sweeping this problem under the rug, the courage for the state to make investments in our communities and to partner with local communities, the courage to do things differently. The governor highlighted the rapid acquisition endeavor, and I was a big advocate for us to put significant resource towards rapid acquisition. That has allowed us to acquire emergency housing by converting hotels right here in Seattle, as well as permanent housing. I was really delighted when Mayor Harrell's team called me in May to say that they were working to acquire a property in North Seattle along Green Lake, and then I was called in July to come to the grand opening. As the governor said, often, almost always, to build housing and stand it up for low-income people, and especially for people who are experiencing homelessness, in the past has taken years. And now, with courage and conviction, it is taking weeks, and that is making all the difference. The other elements I really want to highlight is the importance of collaboration. It really does take an enormous effort, and I'm very grateful to our state agency leads for their collaboration, to our local government partners for coming to the table to work on things in a different way, to put our minds to something and getting it done, to lead with compassion, and to also lead with humility, to understand that people who are experiencing homelessness often know what's best for themselves and often are seeking both safe and autonomous places where they can take care of their own needs. This hotel is an example of where that starts, and the continued work that we're doing on rapid housing acquisition will be what we need to do to continue this effort. And as the governor said, we are not done. Just this morning, I got an email from a neighbor in North Seattle saying, I have an encampment in my neighborhood, and we need your help now. And it is on state property, and we need the state and the city to work together. So I look forward to continuing to work with these partners. I'm very grateful for the seasoned social service providers, our own King County Regional Homelessness Authority, the Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, State Patrol, our local law enforcement for their collaboration on this effort. And I look forward to going back to Olympia in January to continuing to build upon these efforts. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our leader of our regional effort to end homelessness here in King County, Mark Dones.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm going to start just by saying that, I've been on this job for 15 months. The authority has been operant since January. And the thing that I'm really excited about today, and what I have said at a number of these events over the last several months, is teamwork makes the dream work, right? And it is actually only possible to be in a community where homelessness is over when the community makes that decision and acts in concert collectively to make that real. And so what you're seeing today, the success that we have had, is we success, right? It is not the success of the authority. It is not the success of the legislature, the governor of WSDOT. It is all of us coming together and saying it is unacceptable for our neighbors to have to live outside. That is not the world we want to live in, and it's not the world we have to live in. As a result of that dedication and that work, we have resolved 4 long-standing encampments that some of which, when I said, okay, we're going to work on Dearborn, for example, was told, good luck, that's been there forever, it'll be there forever. And our answer as a team to that, very straightforwardly, was no. And because of that no, everyone who we engaged with at Dearborn, with the exception of a single person, is inside today. And I want to lift that up because I think there's also frequently a myth, right, much to what Representative Macri was talking about, that we don't that like people decline things, or we cannot move quickly and also bring everyone inside. And what this partnership demonstrates is that that is straightforwardly false. The reality is that when we use money smartly, when we use public funds with the best and most innovative strategies that we have, instead of clinging to things that we know do not work, like our old congregate shelter models, we can rapidly resolve encampments. We can bring everyone inside. That is the reality we can live in. I also want to, just lift up, the governor for the courage to really invest in, and the legislature for really taking him up on that, right, to invest in these new and innovative ways of doing things, as opposed to really tying our hands at the local level and saying it has to be more congregate shelter, it has to look this way. It is the capacity to prioritize speed and to pay for the things that speed entails that allows us to stand here today saying what we're saying about this early success. I also want to lift up the really important partnership that we have had with the Department of Transportation and with Washington State Patrol in particular. And I really want to honestly thank them for being so flexible and open to learning what it is to live in the human service side of things. For folks who I think are used to, doing really big stuff, but also really technical stuff with bridges, to sort of step into our world of, we have to do this deep, meaningful relationship building. We have to sort of operate inside these different types of timescales. That could have gone very left, and it didn't. Instead, because of their commitment to show up to the table in partnership, right, we are again here today. And I also want to just, before I close, make note of the fact that I am using a word, resolution, to describe our activity that there has been some attention to in the media, and I want to be really clear that I'm using that term deliberately. When we say that we have resolved an encampment, what that means is that we are able to say everyone came inside, right? That is the purpose of the use of that term, and the thing that we have been able to do in this partnership is prioritize that outcome and the time it takes to get to that outcome, rather than the harmful practice of sweeps that we have seen in the past, which overly prioritize speed without placement into actual housing. What I want to be clear on, though, is that we do owe our neighbors swiftness. We cannot continue to say, in 20 years we'll have a place for you to be. That is an unacceptable public policy response. And so the other thing I'm really proud of is that all of the resolution timeframes we've worked on have not gone over 8 weeks from start to finish. Because once we decide that we are going to run an operation in a location, those folks have our undivided attention and the resources of the system necessary to make their reality fundamentally different. So I want to thank you all for being here today to share in this bit of good news. I will close simply by saying what I always say: there is no such good thing, or there's no such thing as a good homelessness press conference until everybody is inside. That is not today, but by doing the work that we are doing today at scale and with rigor, we can get to that day soon. Thank you. Governor.
Yeah, thank you. Well, now, thank you. I appreciate your work on this, Mark. It has been remarkable. I want to invite Lisa Dugard, who's been an advocate for folks in this situation for quite some time, who really understands this on a where the rubber meets the road basis. Lisa.
Thank you, Governor. Hello. Very happy to be able to be here to talk about a partnership that shows so much promise. I want to echo the others who have spoken about all of the partners on the state right-of-way work who have come to it with a spirit of learning and an open mind, and done what it took to make each of these locations where we've worked a real success. I am a co-executive director at PDA. We work here at the Civic Hotel and at several other locations where we provide non-congregate shelter. This is something that came together under the rubric of just care in 2020. And Because of the state right-of-way investment, the partnership with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, some of that work has been able to continue forward this summer and fall. So many of the people who are here in the Civic and the 3 other locations where we provide intensive case management came from state right-of-way locations. I am super honored to work with an incredible team of people, some of whom are standing here in the room with you, looking at Nicole and Johnny, Tanya Lowry, who created the opportunity for us to be here today, who are really critical to the sense of promise that we are all talking about. There are really 3 key points that we have to hit in order to continue to see success. One is the approach, one is the people, and one is the resources or a place for people to go. The approach Mark has described, it is working backward from there is a plan for each person. You don't have to tackle that kind of on glacial time. You can imagine that we're going to achieve the picture that Rep. Macri is standing in front of. We can imagine that we're going to achieve this, within a matter of weeks or months, and understand that there's actually 2 ways to get to this. One way, and this picture could look identical in 2 different ways. One, everyone who was living there is scattered, and they're living somewhere else, and that are going to generate calls and concerns, and rightly so. Or every person that was at a location like this could be getting care and support so that they never return to living in the circumstances that we've all seen that are absolutely unacceptable. So opting for that approach where everyone has a resolution plan that meets their needs and circumstances, where they're headed to a place that they will be welcome, that they will accept, that they can stay, and from there make a permanent stabilization plan, that's the approach that works. The people, there's a skill set to do this work that we have to have. The folks doing the field work on the right-of-way project here in King County are very rich in lived experience, and also just are kind of, they're like the engineers. We've really been thinking about the parallel between engineering with our state partners and our work. They figure out what has to happen for something to go well and make sure that they can deliver that. And if they can't deliver that, they put their hand up and say so. For this work to proceed and scale, that workforce has to be invested in, and we have to address the wage level that is absolutely essential in order to mobilize the workforce to do this statewide. And then thirdly, there has to be a place for people to go that they will accept that will work for them. That has to be lodging and housing that is both dignified, where people can calm down, feel secure, have some autonomy, and begin to address the complex issues that underlie almost everybody's journey to living outside. And then once we've provided that at a place like this, we have to have what Mark calls throughput. We have to be able to make a plan for people to exit, so that this is not a place for people to live forever. And we want to be able to open these rooms up for more folks at more locations. So approach, people, and resources will allow to scale this. We know how to do this. We can do this. And it's just an incredible honor to partner with those here today to begin to see this happen. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Brett D'Antonio, who is with the Habitat for Humanity, Seattle, King County, and Kittitas, to come share some experience. Brett.
I'm bringing up the back here, last one, so I'm going to keep it brief. My name is Brett D'Antonio, CEO of Habitat Seattle, King and Kittitas County. We're here celebrating the tremendous work that these people behind me have done to get people off the streets in an innovative and fast way. But as the governor mentioned, we need other types of housing. It's a continuum. We need to be able to move people up, whether that's into affordable rental, market rate rental, or home ownership opportunities, which is what Habitat supports, because that's the American dream, right? That is the top of the continuum. It's an opportunity to own a home, put down roots in a community, engage in that community, and most importantly, generate wealth. And there are a number of populations that are disproportionately suffering lower rates of home ownership. So while we're doing this great work here on shelter and moving people through the housing continuum, we've also got to still keep our eye on other types of housing at the same time, because we can't take 10 years, as the governor said. So I want to thank the Department of Commerce, who has created a home ownership division recently. They put record amounts of money for this first year, $25 million, into the Housing Trust Fund specifically for home ownership, because we want to move people up. So with that, like I said, I want to keep it short, but I just appreciate that we're also talking about all types of housing, but also we should be celebrating what has been accomplished while we're here today. So thanks you all.
Thanks for all your volunteers. By the way, people are welcome to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, right?
Yes.
Just give them he'll show you a place to work. A couple comments, just listening to the speakers, a couple things I want to summarize. One, this is answering to what Washingtonians want, and we all kind of want two things. We want our housing program to be rapid, and we want it to be real. And this is rapid. We are moving the ball, getting people off of our right-of-ways in weeks, not decades. And second, it's real. It's not just playing whack-a-mole with homelessness encampments. It's not just chasing people from the Dearborn encampment to Lincoln Park. It's getting them in all kinds of housing, including transitional housing, so that it is a real solution, not just a bumper sticker. And that's what we're doing, and that's why it's working. It's rapid, it's real. The second thing is I want to just share what I think there's a significant reason this is succeeding. It is we are rejecting the there's only one solution to homelessness ideology. There's no one answer to this. We need to do it all. People have said, well, we just need more law enforcement. It's true, and we're getting more law enforcement. We've increased our training so we can have more officers on the beat. It's true that we need to get guns out of the hands of certain people so we can have more cops and fewer guns fundamentally. It's true that we need mental health support for people. That's why we're increasing our mental health support and reforming our mental health system so it can be closer to people where they live. It's true we need additional chemical problem treatment for people, and that's why we intend to make that more approachable. It's true we need more middle housing, and it's true we need transitional housing on short term. The point is we need all of these things, and we are doing all of these things. And we've gotten over this ideological battle and become solution-oriented rather than having a debating society. And I look forward to continuing that effort. Again, I want to thank everybody who's supportive of this, including the public, who is frustrated by homelessness, but I think recognizes we're making progress. With that, happy to stand from questions from the press. Yes.
Sir, in terms of finding solutions, what I'm hearing from a lot of the like nonprofit shelter organizations is that we need to do more on prevention, so that there's, during the pandemic there was rent assistance available where people need more help. They need to stay in their homes instead of going out of their homes and then for someone finding them housing again. So what's your answer for that?
They're right. We do need to do more. We will intend to do more over time. There are various mechanisms for doing that. Of course, ultimately, as I've said, producing more housing is the ultimate solution to this, to keep rents down. That's why one of the ideas we're suggesting is this expanded REIT exemption. If you sell your house to someone who's low income, that's the one way to subsidize people to move forward. So the legislature will be exploring, I'm confident, measures to do that. I also want to note that we are making real progress on preventing youth homelessness. We don't want to see people leaving foster care or our juvenile justice system and then going right into homelessness. And we have several new creative models to get to these young people so they don't move from our state institutions into homelessness. My wife Trudy's been a leader on this. The legislators have done some really good work on this. We need to expand those programs as well. So I agree with them. We need to do more.
Governor,
yeah.
Question for you just about the right-of-way safety initiative that launched this spring, correct? How many encampments have been resolved since this program?
I think the answer is 9 as of this date, but literally we're doing this on a daily basis. So that pace we intend to continue. And again, the reason, look, I've been on this for some time trying to get a more rapid solution to this problem. Our Department of Transportation has worked as hard as they can, but they didn't have the person power to do it. The legislature now put in $300 million to allow them to do it, and that's why this is being successful. I want to thank legislators for that. So they're working as fast as we can. They're hiring as many people as we can to do this work as fast as we can. And we're working with as many communities as we can to do that. So I guess what I'm saying is I do think, somebody asked me last night, am I satisfied with the pace? Well, of course, I'm never satisfied with the pace, right? Because we always want to go faster. But I think we are using that money as effectively and as rapidly as humanly possible, and I'm happy about it. Do you want to add anything to that, Roger, or not? Okay.
I did have a quick follow-up.
Yes, go ahead.
When residents call and they want to say, hey, come out, we have something on state property.
Yeah.
What do they need to understand? What needs to be in place before we can go in and address that?
Well, what we've decided is that we want to do this as fast as we can and as permanently as we can. So what they need to know is the state's doing everything it can to have a meaningful solution that is real and rapid. And I think what I'm here today is to say we're doing exactly that. Now, that may involve getting people some opportunity to go some other place, because it's not a solution for John to say, I'm going to move John's home encampment over to Jane's neighborhood, because then Jane makes the same call. We need something to have these people that have some meaningful housing solution that isn't just whack-a-mole on these systems. So you simply have one citizen's problem becoming a different citizen's problem. And what I've learned is that this works. That's the other thing I will just note. This really works. People change their lives. I think there's kind of a misconception that homeless people are just sort of, by genetics or otherwise, homeless forever. What a bunch of bunk. These people come in and restore their lives. Like this guy I met the other day. You know, he got help. He got that roof over his head. He said that allowed me to become feeling of secure so I can tackle my addiction problem. And I'm on top of it now because he's also got medical-assisted treatment. And I guess what I'm saying is that there's really good news stories here if we just give people a roof. And we want to continue those good stories.
I have a question about funding. So the $3 million is for this year. Are you looking for more in 2023? Is that right? Or
yes, I think I'm reasonably confident that we will do what we normally have done and increase our commitment financially from the state, from multiple perspectives. Now, the rapid housing that we're talking about, that was $300 million. Of $800 million we put into housing. So we have $500 million we put in directly to assistance of what you might think of more permanent housing, something that someone's going to live in for decades. It's a more permanent structure with more amenities and the like. So I think it's important as we do this, we provide solutions throughout the spectrum of housing. How to get somebody into a tiny house next week, how to get somebody in a converted hotel next month, how to build a new facility of 100 units like I saw in Vancouver yesterday or the day before yesterday, that's a more permanent situation where they're building this whole community right next to a school. It's a beautiful deal. We need to make investments throughout that spectrum, and I think we're on the beam doing that.
just a follow-up question probably for Washtenaw.
Yeah.
But, we went down to the Dearborn area, and there was like a structure that had kind of gone up like by one of the overpasses. So it was like it was clear that the fence was cut.
I'm sorry?
It was clear the fence was cut, and there was like a structure around it. How often are people going back to check on the
Roger,
sites?
you want to?
We have over 250 square miles of right-of-way in the state of Washington, so we're not on every inch of it every day of the week. But our maintenance crews here in the Northwest region, which is the Seattle-King County area, are making regular checks. As my colleague Chief Batiste's patrol is making regular checks, and when we see something starting, we get in and stop it. And we also encourage people, when they see something, let us know. Let us know.
Yes.
Of the $300 million that the supplemental budget allocated for acquiring rapid housing, it was estimated that this could acquire 2,460 new housing units. Can you provide an update on how many have been acquired now and a timeline for when that total could become acquired?
I can't right now, but I will get an answer to you, and I'll share it with the rest of the media as well. I'll ask my staff to get you an answer to that. I am convinced. Listen, people need to understand, I have been really aggressive in all of my efforts, including with the legislature, to do this as fast as humanly possible. I can tell you I get briefed on this regularly on our progress. And I'm convinced that we are doing this as fast as humanly possible. I feel good about that. And believe me, if I didn't, I would be on Roger's case within an hour. So you got high priority from the governor, and we're going to continue running full speed on this. But I will get you those numbers. I will tell you that it will be as rapidly, we will spend that money as rapidly as we effectively can do. We're not holding anything back.
Has the state run into any of the same issues that like King County has when they have been trying to add new housing or shelter with opposition from local communities?
Yes, I'm really glad you brought this up, because yes, we have had two things happening at the same time. People saying you need to get rid of that homeless encampment and don't build a tiny home village in my neighborhood. Well, how are we going to solve this problem if we don't build some of these rapid housing units? We have to do that. Now, here's the really good news. I'll tell you an example that has been replicated throughout the state. I was at a tiny home village in Tacoma, a few months ago, and really well-run organization. Everything's working. Met some nice people there, well supervised. But when they proposed it, there was a extreme uprising of the neighborhood opposing this idea. And it was very controversial to get it cited, but it finally was cited. Now those same neighbors bring food to the homeless folks. They come and play, cards with the homeless folks. They are integrated in the community just like other neighbors. This story is replicated throughout the state of Washington, where there is, at the beginning, there's questions and controversies, not surprising. At the middle part, there's getting to know each other, and at the end, there's a happy news story where people look at them as neighbors. And so it takes time. You need to listen to citizens' concerns. You have to provide support for these, let's just take tiny homes villages. Just putting in a roof is not enough. You need someone to administer it. You need some rational system of security to give neighbors assurance. You have to have a system of making sure that the hygiene and the health remains good. You have to have people who are adept at working with people who have been homeless. And one of the successes is we've been successful on this is because we have so many people who have that lived experience. Probably the majority of the people who work in these facilities have been homeless at one time or another. So they're really good at being mentors and helping people come in off the streets. It is difficult for folks who've been away from a secure environment to even get the idea of being inside a building and learning what to do with your trash. It's a learning experience. And the best people to help them are people who have been homeless. And so we're using that talent to great effect. So we do hope people that will get to know the success stories out there about why these can be fit into a neighborhood very, very well. Yeah.
Last session, you supported fourplex zoning as a way to sort of bring down housing prices, increase production.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar plan, or reconfigure that a little bit for this session?
Well, I think it's to somewhat, we're trying to address the same problem, which is we need to site more housing if we're going to have people have homes in our state. Our approach will be different this year. We think there's two things that we'll work with the legislators on. First, bringing more high-density housing next to right-of-ways. So you've got a transit corridor next to a transit corridor. So you build a higher density next to a transit corridor, which is good for those folks, good for the whole economy. So freeing up more land along these transit corridors, we think, is a good approach. A second approach is to look for the cities to meet some targets on the percentage of their city that is available for more dense housing, is another particular approach. We're going to advance both those, I believe, working with legislators. But one way or another, we're not making any more land in the state of Washington, so we have to free up some more land for housing for Washingtonians. And I want to reiterate, freeing up the land to build middle housing for a computer scientist who just moved from Boston and makes $170,000 a year is imperative if we're going to solve this homelessness problem. Because if that person can't buy a new house, they go compete for an old house, it drives up real estate prices, it drives up rent, and folks at the bottom of the economic pyramid become homeless. So we have to do all these things throughout the spectrum of housing. Look forward to success on that. Yes?
Yeah, so I guess two questions. One is just, do you have any particular specifics for this upcoming legislative session in terms of
Several things. Number one, just total dollar amounts. We know this problem is significant, and we will continue to try to increase the total investments. And two, do it throughout the stream, the rapid rehousing, the small tent village, the hotel conversion, the more permanent solution for people for long-term, non-transitional housing. We need to do all of those things, and we will continue with that strategy. Third, this issue of freeing up more land to build housing that we just talked about. Fourth, we need to continue to expand our support services for folks. We do need more mental health treatment, not just for homeless people, but for the whole community. We do need more chemical addiction services. We do need more law enforcement personnel. Well, thanks for the Washington State Patrol, who've been so professional as they're part of this effort as well. But we need more trained officers. So we are expanding. We're not defunding the police. We are expanding our funding for police by training more police. We're bringing in new training classes at our criminal justice training center so we can have more officers to help. So all of these things are important, and you'll see good proposals in our budget about that.
And then also, how important are some of these demand for incentives in terms of, thinking outside the box and being more than just building up?
Well, I think they've been effective if they're carefully calibrated. I think everyone needs to be calibrated to the specific situation. You don't want to have a gift of public funds and not get something for it. So you want to make sure you get something for the public benefit. As long as they're properly calibrated and fairly negotiated, I think they've proven quite effective. And I think the state has been appropriately aggressive in doing that. So I'm pretty comfortable with them. Yeah.
I read that of the $800 million allocated for homelessness and housing last year, about more than 2/3 of that came from the American Rescue Plan Act, presumably with that being one-time federal funding, and you're talking about increasing funds from the previous year. Where are those funds going to come from?
Well, first off, I can't guarantee any dollar figure because I've not written our budget yet. So we're still putting our budget together. So I can't give you a specific a dollar. But look, they will come from all sources combined from our general fund. And we've had some increases that legislature has provided in document recording fees and the like. But the general fund will be available within the prioritization that we have to do everything we can do. But I'm relatively confident we will certainly do more than the state has done. Can we top what the federal has done? I don't know the answer to that. But I want to continue to tell the public and legislators I think this has been a great investment. We should continue to grow it. Yeah.
Question for you from Spokane about Camp Hope. Our affiliate there, since it's one of the largest camps, they want to specifically know if you have plans to visit there, if you have plans for that stuff.
Well, yes. The state's position is we want to close and folks move to better housing away from Camp Hope as soon as possible. We are very, very, very aggressively looking for other housing solutions for them. There's been significant progress. The number of people there, I think, has come down from about 600 to 400 or in that range. There's some new housing units coming in through the city that's going to be available in the 200 range, and we're exploring further steps from there. So what the state wants to do is to transition those folks out of Camp Hope as soon as humanly possible. We know the winter is coming, so that gives us a kind of a target or deadline to shoot for, and we all should be working together to find a solution, which we are doing. And it is a very assertive, aggressive approach by the state to get additional housing opportunities for those folks. Now, some people in the community don't want to see them just pushed to another park in Spokane. They want them to have some other housing situation, so this just doesn't create a Camp Hope 2. And that's what we're doing, very dedicated to that as quickly as humanly possible. Anything else? Anybody else want to add anything? With that, thank you very much. Round of applause for our speakers here. All right.